Gotta remember you're over there. You're over here or over there. But anyways, I am back with Patrick CC, Nickelodeon's most disturbing creator, banned from TV. Well, I already knew who this was going to be about because, if we're being honest, the Dan Schneider files have been pretty much a decade ago. Yeah, I think that's when it started happening and it got like, it started stacking up. So I wanted to give my whole viewpoint of the situation. I did watch the documentary about like the Nickelodeon childhood stars and all that stuff. It was on a, what was it, on Max? I think it was on Max or Peacock. Either way, I watched the documentary, and all I got to say is this: the price that people have to pay for fame. It's low key kind of, it's sad that the way that the world is, the way that it is. Like, there's predators like him who are profiting off of young girls, and it's not, it's just so ideal and actually kind of disgusting. That's why I chose to just not speak about it entirely. Like, I mean, when it happened, I was like, man, that shit is cold. But I just completely disconnected. On to the next subject. That's how I am. Like, I don't, you see, the thing is, one thing I hate for like, for damn sure, is a person who will go out of their way to actively hate on somebody. As soon as that somebody posts, they are the first one in the comment section saying, "This sucks, you're horrible," and whatever. Hate watching, hate streaming. My money towers, you're depleting. Okay? I don't hate watch nor do I hate stream. I may take a glance at so and so doing something, but if I don't mess with somebody artist wise, I just stop listening to them. I just stop giving them my attention. Because it's like, that's the better way to do it. There's nothing wrong with having a preference, but completely bashing somebody based on only your preference is absolutely diabolical. I I hate that so much. But anyways, I done yapped enough. It's time to let my boy Patrick CC do his thing. Hopefully I get some subscribers for this. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, dude. I'm kidding. I'm doing this for the love. I don't care about the followers, the glitz and glamour. Okay. Let's
The list of known predators that worked at Nickelodeon is getting longer. John Kricfalusi, creator of the legendary animated series Ren and Stimpy, was so confident he wouldn't face consequences that he would allude to his twisted fantasies in his work, or just
Yo. Yeah, like so like the creator of Rocco's Modern Life, I know the creator because I watched Blame It on Jorge, which shout out to Blame It on Jorge. If you still make videos, I'll tune into the next one. I haven't heard from you in a while though. But this like this artist right here made that. See, you gotta think, like, after looking back at a lot of childhood shows and movies, you gotta like think like a grown man sat there for hours, days drawing this. I'm just saying.
straight up confess them on camera.
One of them's a hot chick with big cans and nice legs. Who drew that? You?
She's underage, too.
Yeah, very nice.
Katie showed me one time. She drew, I was at her 15th birthday party. We'll tell you that backstory a little bit later.
John Kay created this illusion of being a hero in animation, that he was fighting corporate giants to bring back the real creativity that was missing in cartoons. And to some degree, he was right. But his ego and insufferable rock star animator persona made him nearly impossible to work with. Time and time again, he was chewed up and spit out by the industry, but had enough hard-working creatives with undying loyalty to him willing to deal with his nonsense for the greater good of the creative community. But once his dark secrets were brought to light, his empire of lies began to crumble, and what resulted was one of the most disturbing confessions in children's animation history.
I'm sorry if I keep I'm paying attention, but it's just I just took my cornrows out, and when I tell you my hair looks crazy right now. It looks crazy. So if I keep, that's why my hair is a mess.
She was too young, and I freely admit that. It was a bad decision. But she was so convincing.
John Kricfalusi started to believe he was too good for one of the top animation programs in North America. In 1976, he attended Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario. He criticized the curriculum's focus on really basic technical things over storytelling and performance. He later ranted about it, saying, "How to draw? No. How to act? No. How to..."
Well, that's the whole purpose of school. It's supposed to teach you the boring stuff, and once you mastered the boring stuff, you can let your imagination do whatever you want, and it's obvious that it was proof. Like, I gotta stand motherfuckers like that. Like, bro, you go to school for something, then when they teach you the boring parts that you don't like, you just decide, oh, like, they're not a good school. Like, no. You have to sink to rise. You have to float to fly. How hard is that? Like, come on now.
Compose? No. No animation skills do you learn in animation.
Actually, my watch is charging, or my watch just finished charging. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break real quick. And speaking of sink to rise, yeah, Miss Layla.
I've been lonely, but I gotta seek to rise, seek to rise. Hold me, I've been lonely. Look me in my brown eyes, tell me lies. Oh, how do you know things will change for me? How would you know things gonna change for me now? I've been angry, but I gotta laugh to cry, laugh to cry. No, you can't take me. First I gotta fall to fly. Live to die, and the world split open. No, it's not mine. All the love in the world is there for you to find it. It's yours. I watch the world split open. No, it ain't mine. But all the love in the world is there for you to find. Find it, baby. Won't you take the rise?
So there you go. Just a little jam sesh. Just thought we needed that. All right.
The list of
Let's keep
known
her going.
predators that work in history in Oakville, Ontario.
Went in. Freely admit that.
For one of the top animation programs in North America. In 1976, he attended Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario. He criticized the curriculum's focus on really basic technical things over storytelling and performance. He later ranted about it, saying, "How to draw? No. How to act? No. How to compose? No. No animation skills do you learn in animation school." At this same time, John was getting inspiration from a film archivist named Reg Hart, who would screen his vast collection of classic cartoons like Yosemite Yosemite Sam, Daffy Duck, and Bugs Bunny at a nearby theater. These classics were notorious for pushing visual boundaries and playing with adult themes that would often get animators into trouble. John was instantly in love with the visual storytelling and described it as the wildest experience I ever felt, like taking acid or something.
All of a sudden, I saw a cartoon called The Great Piggy Bank Robbery. It was completely different than anything I'd ever seen before, and I just, all of a sudden, basically went insane. Bob Clampett's cartoons are more like what music does, what Elvis does to you, what Björk does to you. It just, makes you thrust your groin all over the place.
Reg Hart started to see that John was actually gifted. John's enthusiasm was infectious. His intelligence was clear to me, if not to his teachers. In my programs, he saw everything his teachers turned their noses up at. As Salvador Dali, Pablo Picasso, and Henri Langlois said, "It is good taste, not bad taste, which is the enemy." John's rebellious attitude and poor attendance ultimately got him expelled from Sheridan College in 1978, and despite having no official credentials, he was able to start his career in animation after moving to Los Angeles. John Kay began as a storyboard artist on Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, where he helped map out visual storytelling for each episode. He later transitioned into a layout artist role, working on shows like The Tom and Jerry Comedy Show, Heathcliff, The Smurfs, and he was even sent to Taiwan to oversee a team of 15 people working on a reboot of The Jetsons. And very quickly, John realized the animation industry was a lot like what he hated about college. They had strict deadlines, a specific structure or formula to stick to, and were generally discouraged from taking creative risks, which made him feel like he was just ruining classic cartoons. The next year, we ruined Tom and Jerry and Droopy, and a few years later, I got to ruin The Jetsons. I actually tried to save it while I was working on it, but it was pretty hard, because the whole thing was set up to ruin them. A new character named Orbity was there because E.T. had just hit it big a couple something years before, and they wanted to make sure that the kids liked the Jetsons. Every chance I got, I'd have Astro accidentally step on his head, get him crushed under the couch, everything I could to get that thing out of the way. John thought he was doing the network a favor. I came back waiting to be hailed as, I thought they'd have a parade waiting for me. John went and put jokes in our cartoons. He's going to be our hero. I thought there'd be a big party for me. But instead, a lot of people were mad at me for putting jokes in the show and making it lively, so I was out of a job when I got back. I didn't get fired exactly, they just didn't give me another job. Now, even though he is coming across as a little pompous, to some, John's rebellious attitude here is actually refreshing. After all, corporations are—
Because you never really see anybody who's born with just any ordinary gift. You never see them, act like that. Like, whatever. Like, it's obvious he has like a true passion for it. And that's why, like, a lot of animators, like even nowadays and even back then in this time period, they just were not cutting it. Not cutting it at all. Every show I watched, horrible. Every movie I watched, horrible. And it wasn't horrible mainly because of like the story. It was just the lack of creativity. Like there's so many ways to be creative. Like, bro, literally Minions. Like Minions. I literally just saw that movie. I saw the Minions and Monsters movie, and I have to say it was good. It was a good story, but as far as it like having like that hype that, Despicable Me 1 had, not even close. Even Despicable Me 4 didn't even get me like that. I remember I watched it with my boss at the time, and he said compared to the other movies, that movie was bad, but it's low-key, like, it's good. It's just I wish they could have like been more creative and not so predictable. And this guy is living proof that he is unpredictable. He's just used his unpredictability in suggestive and peculiar ways.
are notorious for taking creative IP and milking it dry for the sake of profit. And one man in particular wanted to give John full creative freedom to unlock his maximum potential, and his name was Ralph Bakshi. But in doing that, John would expose the dark and disgusting thoughts inside of his mind, creating—
it's just it's crazy how some things are, it's just, you wouldn't know from looking at him that he would be doing any of this disturbing imagery. And it's just crazy how he's been doing this all this time, and yet he's still Like nobody caught up to him, nobody said nothing to him, like nobody took him to jail like at all. I'm pretty sure isn't what he's doing a felony? It is. I'm pretty sure it is a felony. And it's just so the whole time this nigga was drawing this shit, and now recently this is when y'all want to speak up. This is when y'all want to have this documentary and all. Like it's just crazy how people really will go that far for like withholding information that is for sure gonna damage their reputation until the grave, unless they're outed. Like that's the thing. It's literally it's just a game of luck.
Some genuinely unhinged cartoons that would come back to haunt him years later. John Kricfalusi's life changed in the early 80s when Bakshi got in contact with him, and one day I got a call from Hanna-Barbera that said, "Some guy named Ralph has been calling, wants your phone number." Ralph Bakshi was an animator who, according to John, got disgusted with the business and had retired maybe 3 or 4 years before. Ralph's creations and attitude aligned perfectly with John K. Ralph's work pushed right past innuendo and straight into the most controversial content you'd never be able to see on Grandma's TV. The biggest standout was the adaptation of Robert Crumb's comic called Fritz the Cat.
Don't get me started on this movie, bro. Do not get me started. I remember I was scrolling through YouTube and Dwayne and Jazz, they reacted to Screen Rant, animated movies that are only intended for adults, and this movie was on there. And so I just go there, do my research. Yo, when I tell you this movie is so problematic and so controversial and just overall just just very crass. Like that's one thing about this movie. It's crass as hell. It's just like nobody got any like dignity. Nobody got like, any integrity. They just want to they literally predicted the future on what our generation is doing now. We're just out here busting nuts and causing controversies. Like that's literally what this movie is all about. Literally. I remember I watched it, and as soon as I saw like the Nazi being, I was like, this is all I gotta say is if you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. But me personally, I wouldn't go looking for it.
It tackled urban decay, prostitution, brutal racism, and random, disturbingly sexual acts.
Yeah.
Gee, he's handsome.
You can help me. You must save me. By so doing, you too will be saved.
Well, I'd like to, but what can I do?
Lovely set of eyes there. Ah, little sweet one with your heart of gold. I know of a place where we can be alone to join our souls in sacred truth.
Fritz the Cat was the first animated film to achieve an X rating, which Bakshi looked at as a badge of honor. For him, animation was something that was aggressively marketed to children by the 50s and 60s, and he resented the fact that there was nothing that could inspire or entertain adults exclusively.
The problem I faced in animation was the kind of...
Dude, that shit was not entertaining. It was just very interesting. It kept me grounded. Like I didn't want to break away because I didn't want to miss anything, but I should have missed some stuff because that's the one thing. Like they always want to say, oh yeah, animation shouldn't just be for kids, they should be for, and I'm like, well, do it the right way, because niggas said that and then we got Sausage Party. Like dead ass. That was the result of what y'all complaining, like what this guy's complaining about, adult animation only being done for. So this is what y'all want. This is what. Like, come on, bruh. Come on.
Boredom that set in with the kind of repetition that I found when I came into the business in the 50s, where we all basically looked back to Disney and then looked towards children for our major market, hoping these kids would bring along their parents. It's not that I didn't appreciate it or enjoyed drawing the characters or animating them. That in itself is a wonderful art form, but it left me with no way to express my feelings or express a way of life that was important to me or also expresses sort of what people labeled as adult animation. You know, how do you discuss animation for kids over 11? So how do you try to make them get reinterested in what they loved once? And I think you have to talk to them directly about subject matters that animation never touched.
On the phone, Bakshi gave Chris Falusi an offer to work with him as a 50-50 partner. He accepted, and they rented a space on Ventura Boulevard above an old clothing store where they developed 6 Saturday morning cartoons and wrote a script for a film. However, John Kay later explained that they couldn't sell anything. The industry was only interested in intellectual property that already proved its worth. Anything original was too risky.
When we were doing this, there was no such thing as an original cartoon on Saturday morning. All the cartoons on Saturday morning TV were based on pre-existing properties. They called it marquee value, which meant you could do the new adventures of Mighty Mouse, you could do the new adventures of the Jetsons. But the way the networks thought was, if you had a character that no one's ever seen before, the kids wouldn't know who it was and they wouldn't watch it, which is crazy to me. Obviously, every character is invented at some point. Bugs Bunny, had a first cartoon or something.
In retaliation, John and Ralph decided to offer jobs to animators in big studios who were tired of creating crappy reboots to try and make something with a bit more edge. They settled on a revival of the classic Mighty Mouse cartoon called Mighty Mouse: The New Adventures. This followed the tiny superhero as he saved the day from absurd villains. John suggested it stood out because it was the first series that was completely created by cartoonists. It was written by cartoonists, all of the creative decisions were made by cartoonists, and we created all the characters. The Mighty Mouse reboot pushed the boundaries of what was considered appropriate for Saturday morning television and resembled some of what Bakshi had done with Fritz. In the episode Mighty's Wedlock Whimsy, it's implied that Gandy Goose and Sourpuss were showering together and that Pearl Pureheart in a dream sequence has a love child with Mighty Mouse's nemesis, the cow. A Star is Milked featured a cartoon parody of Michael Jackson whose hair catches on fire while moonwalking, a reference to his real-life Pepsi commercial incident.
Funny.
But the turning point came.
That's not funny. That's not funny, dude. That almost killed him. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to give a forceful. That's not funny, bro. They were so out of pocket for that. I'm gonna be real. As soon as they put that is so out of pocket, bro. That is mad out of pocket.
Fire while moonwalking, a reference to his real-life Pepsi commercial incident. But the turning point came in the episode The Littlest Tramp, after Mighty Mouse snorts crushed flower petals. During production, concerns were raised that the scene could be interpreted as drug use.
Yo! So, what did he snort?
Flower petals. During production, concerns were Littlest Tramp, after Mighty Mouse snorts crushed flower petals. During production, concerns were raised that the scene could be interpreted as drug use, which it obviously was. But the sequence had already been approved by network executives and CBS's standards and practices. When the episode aired in October of 1987, there weren't any issues, until a few months later when Donald Wildman of the American Family Association accused the episode of depicting use. The group also criticized Bakshi's involvement on Mighty Mouse, alleging that CBS knowingly hired a well-known choreographer since Ralph had a reputation for making animated films like Fritz the Cat. The backlash caused the show to get canceled altogether, and according to John, there were plenty of other things we got away with in the cartoons that someone could have jumped on, but this flower thing was manufactured out of nothing. It was clear that John Kricfalusi was completely fed up with the industry.
I'm a cartoonist and I like to make cartoons, and I don't want anybody to tell me how to make the cartoons. I just want to make the goddamn things. But that situation doesn't exist anymore in America. It's no longer a free country. It's communist or something. And you can only make cartoons that are politically correct, just like everything else. You can only make cars that are politically correct, and you can only make movies that are politically correct.
The only way he could continue to make his edgy material is if he started his own company. So he launched his animation studio, Spumco, with Jim Smith, Bob Camp, and Lynn Naylor, 3 key cartoonists he had worked with on Mighty Mouse and subsequent projects. It was the first modern rebellion of its kind that would come out with a deliberate mission to support creator-driven animation while battling executives every step of the way. And at the time, Nickelodeon was looking for original cartoons to help launch its own animation lineup. So Kricfalusi saw an opportunity. He contacted Nickelodeon's vice president of animation, Vanessa Coffey, and pitched several ideas that other networks had already rejected, including Jimmy the Hapless Boy. But Coffey was more interested in 2 side characters from that pitch that John had been tinkering with since college, named Ren and Stimpy, a chihuahua, and a cat. In 1989, Nickelodeon gave Spunko the money to produce a pilot, launching what would become the Ren and Stimpy Show. Of course, the decision to launch a show created by John Kay, using a studio that was owned and run by John Kay, was an extreme gamble on a network that catered to children, and he wasted no time seeing how far he could push boundaries before the network canceled his show altogether.
I was doing the first episodes and writing them and pitching them to Vanessa Coffey. And she asked me, like, how come there's all these fart and booger jokes in there? And I said, well, because kids like that stuff.
Yeah.
She said, they do? I said, yeah, have you ever met a kid? She said, but I don't like it. I said, but tell you what, pretend it's Christmas every Sunday when this show is gonna air. You're not gonna give the kids socks and underwear. Give them what they want, candy. You know, if they like farts and boogers, doesn't matter if you like them or I like them, let's give them what they want. So she grudgingly said, okay, now and then, just once in a while. And so we did it, and of course, kids loved it.
In the pilot, Big House Blues, Ren kisses Stimpy and tells him he loves him.
Let us join lips in one final sweet exchange of saliva.
While this is seemingly an innocent bit in today's climate, this moment in the late 80s was interpreted as promoting homosexuality. And remember, gay marriage wouldn't be legalized until 2008. But John Kay wasn't really showing these things to be progressive. He was more
It's like, bro, he knew it's the fact that he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows how to play the system. He's literally trolling these niggas right now. He's trolling.
like an anarchist trying to disgust the viewer like they were watching a brutal car accident. And as a result, Nickelodeon started voicing the same concerns that every network John Kay had worked for in the last 15 years, that the material was not appropriate for a television show aimed at children. Lucky for John, the show was an instant success. The off-form stretching of the show's characters was taken to the extreme, with Ren and Stimpy moving around like they were made of rubber, and artists like Lynn Naylor, Chris Riccardi, and Bill Ray made these artistic, gross close-up shots for the audience that would inspire countless cartoons for decades.
Look, I got pimples, Ren.
These gross-ups, along with the off-model animation, would be massive inspirations to Nickelodeon's later hits, Rocko's Modern Life and SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's insane that Ren and Stimpy was aired on a children's network, to the point where YouTube won't even allow me to talk.
Yeah, bro. When I tell you, I was looking at a couple of Ren and Stimpy episodes, and I was sitting there thinking like, yo, this show is wild. This show is really for adults, if anything. And then I didn't know that there was a separate version that aired on MTV. I looked at one episode. Oh my god. Oh my god. I was just sitting there. I was like, what am I watching? Like, literally, what am I watching? Especially when he got the saw. Yeah. I'm surprised that even MTV allowed that. Even MTV. And the fact that he's doing, like, oh god, dude, he's sick. He's sick, man.
Talk about them without age restricting this video, which is why you should see the full uncensored and ad-free version of this video on my Patreon, link in the description. The amount of work that went into every episode made the production labor intensive.
See, I'm telling you, dude, I cannot wait to start getting on Patreon and knowing how to work that. I feel like it's gonna be a vibe. I want what Dante has got on Patreon, where he could just, dude, I'm telling you, my Patreon is gonna be so live. It's gonna be so live.
As John Kay put it, Ren and Stimpy is a highly choreographed performer, where the drawings, the backgrounds, the color, the music are all like actors working together. We were doing what they did in the 1940s at Warner Bros., but we're not in the 1940s anymore. There's no training ground for this. We were reinventing the wheel. Combine the intense production with the fact that John was a notorious perfectionist, and the result was that the episodes were constantly turned in late, ruining airing schedules. Chris Falusi said, Nickelodeon wants something for the show, I want something for the show. They're both very strong visions, and together they made for a really great show. But in pure reality, when you mix two really strong visions, it's going to take a long time to do the work, which is why from the very beginning he was missing crucial deadlines. In the very first season, episode 3 wasn't done, so Nickelodeon had to air what was supposed to be the 4th episode to give production more time to finish. The season 1 finale, called Stimpy's Invention, took over 1 year to finish because John constantly refined everything in it to the point of ridiculousness until everything was perfect. John was so infamous for missing
OCD, like OCD, perfectionism. Look, it's not just him, it's everybody. We all deal with that shit. Like I completely relate to that 100%. Like wanting to be a perfectionist and working on a cartoon for a year, like I get it, bro. Like I get it. I mean, to be honest, he's working with what he got, and what he got is not working.
deadlines that The Simpsons even joked about it. During an awards ceremony honoring Ren and Stimpy, instead of showing a clip of the cartoon, the screen goes black with the words, "Clip not done yet."
Ren and Stimpy season premiere.
And as if being constantly late wasn't bad enough, John would butt heads with executives for seemingly no reason other than to maintain his rock star rebel cartoonist persona he built up in his head.
Do you subscribe to the often held criticism of cartoons that if a little kid watches a cartoon dog chainsaw a cat's head off and send it to the moon in a rocket, it will try and repeat that same thing in real life?
I hope he does.
For example, Vanessa Coffey would sometimes go to John and request a heartfelt episode that families might be attracted to. But instead of compromising to stay on TV, John K. would make something so stupid it would make them regret they ever asked. One of these responses for more heartfelt material was the episode Stimpy's First Fart, where Stimpy tries to find the sentient fart that he lost.
Hey, dude, that episode was sad, though. That episode was low-key very sad. Like, the imagery, like, the message. Like, yeah, nah, that episode was actually pretty sad.
Essentially the animator's equivalent of wiping their ass with a corporate memo, and it only fed building tensions that would make it harder for everyone else to get their job done. And again, for a moment, John K. almost seems like someone to root for. He fought the corporate giants because he genuinely believed cartoons could be better and more creative. His second in command, Bob Camp, was still on John's side, but more reasonable in his approach to Nickelodeon.
For sure there were things that we had to fight for, but I think that's normal, especially if you're doing edgy content. And we were doing pretty edgy content on a children's network. We weren't skirting the edge, we were skydiving off the edge. Right. Nickelodeon had to deal with us, which wasn't always easy, and we had to deal with them, which wasn't always easy. It's like we had to kind of find a balance and figure out how to make the cartoons we wanted to make that they'd allow us to make.
By the beginning of season 2, Nickelodeon had reached a breaking point. They had a creator who seemed physically incapable of delivering what he promised on time, and he eventually created something so disturbing that they finally had to get rid of him. And that came after the episode Man's Best Friend, which follows Ren and Stimpy and George Liquor, who is their master that trains them to become proper pets. George is supposed to be a caricature of John K.'s father, who can be seen in the episode as extremely explosive, violent, and emotionally manipulative.
And what's the matter with you? Are you afraid of a little discipline?
Ren eventually gets fed up with George's abuse, grabs an oar, and enjoys brutally beating him, leaving Stimpy horrified of the retaliation that is inevitably coming back to them. It's honestly a really uncomfortable watch. It's easy to see that this was not a cartoon for children, and definitely John K.'s twisted way of venting his personal vendettas against his father. As a result, Nickelodeon banned the episode from rerunning on their network ever again, and fired Chris Falusi and most of Spumco in 1992. John believed he was
as much as I appreciate bleeding into your pen, bleeding onto your paintbrush, I understand it wholeheartedly. But to make that episode and send it up to a network that airs kids shows, Like, it's just, my thing is, I want to know what people are thinking when they do this. Like, I mean, I'm just curious, what was going on exactly in his mind when he decided to write that episode and send it up to Nick, bro?
Fired because the network wanted to make Ren and Stimpy more suitable for younger viewers, while Nickelodeon argued the main issue was his constant failure to meet production deadlines due to his reputation as a rebel and notorious perfectionist. After losing his greatest creation and being kicked out of one of the most powerful children's networks in history, it didn't take long for Ren and Stimpy to crash and burn in 1995. Without Spumco, the animation quality declined and most of the creative force driving the show was gone.
Why in God's name did they fire the whole studio?
They fired the studio because they felt they could do it cheaper and...
Creative differences. They didn't, honestly what happened was they didn't really want to take it over. They wanted us to keep doing it, but just with them in charge.
Right. And you didn't want them in charge.
They offered to buy me out, too.
Right.
And I said no.
Because you had some integrity.
Well, I knew what was going to happen on the show. I knew it was going to die.
Right.
Which it did.
John Kay was now relishing in his bad boy persona to the public, rallying support as this sort of anti-establishment animation rebel.
And what does Spumco do? Well, you do cartoons, we do toys, we do all kinds of things that are bad for you, but that are really fun. We're doing comic books. We have a comic book with Dark Horse. It's really bad for you. The best thing about it is it's uncensored. There are no network executives involved with this. There's nobody there to cut out your viewing pleasure. You're just going to have a really good time. But don't tell your mom about it.
However, behind the scenes, he was broken. He felt that Ren and Stimpy was stolen from him. Billy West, who was the voice of Stimpy, stayed on the show with Nickelodeon and took over the voice of Ren as well. This deeply bothered John Kay, and he allegedly harassed Billy constantly about it.
He was an early interneter, and he whipped up this frenzy, it was like these posters that would come and attack me all the time, and they were disciples that would fly into the sun for the guy.
Like just mad that it's not...
Mad that
you stole his gig?
That I stole everything, and that I was like a backstabber and all this stuff, but he pushed his own self-destruct button, and anybody who's ever worked with him will tell you that.
And because of his rebellious attitude and constantly missing deadlines, there was another side of John Kay's personality that people weren't paying enough attention to, and that was his interest in underage girls. And once he had full creative control, many of the warning signs were hiding in plain sight.
Look for comic book. This is the characters. You can see them here. One of them's a hot chick. With big cans and nice legs. Who drew that? You?
She's underage, too.
Yeah, very nice.
In 2002, Nickelodeon's parent company, Viacom, contacted Chris Falusi about creating a new extreme version of Ren and Stimpy for TNN/Spike TV. It was a sister network being rebranded around programming aimed at male audiences, which was a dream come true for John Kay, who despised censorship. He was now finally allowed to make a more uncensored version of Ren and Stimpy titled Ren and Stimpy Adult Party Cartoon. Several people from the original show returned for the revival, including co-developer Jim Smith, director and writer Vincent Waller, and writer Richard Purcell. However, many former crew members who stayed with Nickelodeon, like Billy West, chose not to return. Billy said, "I knew what they were up to, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I don't mind the homo hijinks, but it wasn't funny. Everyone was offended that they were gay, but it doesn't matter if it wasn't funny. It would have damaged my career. It was one of the worst things I ever saw." Chris Falusi called me, and I told him I wished him all the luck in the world, but I wasn't interested. And Billy's intuition was right. The show premiered in the summer of 2003 to overwhelmingly negative reviews from both critics and fans of the original series. Rob Owen of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette described it as just plain gross. They don't pay me enough to watch cartoon characters eating snot. The reliance on shock value didn't land the way John Kay had likely hoped. Even then, Chris Falusi struggled to stay on schedule and within budget. Although the network ordered 9 episodes, only 3 were completed on time, and those 3 reportedly used up the entire budget meant for the full season. Writer Richard Purcell described the work environment as miserable, probably the worst experience of my life. I had nightmares from that time for years, seriously. After Adult Party Cartoon, John was essentially blacklisted from all major names in the animation industry. He was mostly delegated to working on much smaller commercial and animation projects. In the late 2000s, he directed ads for companies like Comcast and developed a Pontiac Pontiac Vibe campaign that was ultimately canceled when the car line was discontinued. He later created animated bumpers for Adult Swim, directed couch gags for The Simpsons, and he even created animated visuals for Miley Cyrus's Bangers tour, including the opening video used behind her performance of SMS. These projects showed that he could still get some work and he was still objectively talented, but no major network was willing to take a risk on him. As his career shifted, he stayed active online through his blog, John K. Stuff, which mainly focused on his personal animations and art. He was once again a pioneer in the online art lesson space with drawing lessons, animation breakdowns, storyboarding advice, color theory, character design tips, and explanations of what he believed made cartoons expressive. He also spent time breaking down poses, facial expressions, layouts, backgrounds, and old cartoon techniques. Now, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but a lot of things John would praise seem to be morally questionable, such as racist caricatures from earlier eras of animation, including exaggerated depictions of black characters rooted in minstrel show stereotypes. In fact, one of John's favorite animations is Coal Black and the Seven Dwarves, a cartoon wildly criticized for its racist, exaggerated features of black people. John's blog also included a recurring pattern of drawings and ideas, especially involving suspiciously young-looking female characters. Many of them had high school girls left exposed or placed in aggressively positions. And this wasn't just a creepy pet project John had on the side. Some of these actually appeared in material connected to his unsold project, Jimmy the Hapless Boy, while other images tied sexualized women in bikinis to the Ren and Stimpy brand. It revealed that this was
it's like it gets to a point where you're like, is this really your purpose? Is this what I was made for? Is this the type of creator that I want to be? It's just, there's so many things wrong with everything I just seen in these past 10 minutes. And the fact that it's now being brought to the surface, or the fact that I'm aware that it's on the surface now, dude, it's just, the world was always a bad place. And I ain't gonna lie, this video's ruining my childhood.
Wasn't a recent development, but something that John was fixated on before he even made a successful show. And honestly, it only appeared to prove that John's depraved nature was often left unchecked by co-animators and his close peers. He had a whole collection of drawings influenced by anime and furry art, alongside fan portraits that sometimes altered women's bodies in exaggerated ways. In one case, Chris Falusi enlarged a woman's chest in a portrait. In another, he went as far as to draw 2 nude women for a male fan. This same pattern appeared in his George Liquor material, including a story where George invites his niece's friends to a slumber party with the girls dressed in revealing outfits and one recurring underage character, Sodi, shown as having a crush on him. Looking back, these posts made the blog feel less like an animation archive and more like a safe space where his admiration for cartoons blurred into something much more unsettling. And when multiple women came out with damning accusations against John K., suddenly it felt like we missed warning signs for decades. In 2018, Ariane Lang with BuzzFeed published an article focusing on 2 women who accused John Falusi of grooming and misconduct when they were teenagers. According to the story, it all started in 1994, when 13-year-old Robin Bird sent Chris Falusi a video of herself discussing her drawings and her dream of working in animation. John replied with a letter, and his enthusiasm felt like the first real step towards making her dream a reality. But what was meant to be a short back and forth with a 13-year-old girl turned into a really troubling pen-pal relationship between a 39-year-old man and an underage teen. Soon, Robin began receiving boxes of toys and art supplies from John. John even helped her set up her first AOL account, through which he convinced her he could help her become a great artist. While the term wasn't nearly as popular in the 1990s, everything John K. was doing resembled the predatory practice of grooming. John had already gone through the first 3 steps to establish a clear intent to take advantage of Robin. He practiced victim selection by finding a way to connect with Bird, gain access by giving her an AOL account to talk directly to an animation celebrity, and built trust by showering her with toys and art supplies.
I was amazed that somebody 16 years old could write so well and could express her emotions so clearly. Some of the things she conveyed was that she was lonely and depressed, that nobody understood her. She used to call me Mr. Falusi, which was very cute.
The next step on the list would be to isolate Robin, and John was willing to do anything possible in order to make that happen. After 3 full years of gifts and messaging, John K. reportedly visited his chosen victim at the trailer park where she lived in Tucson, Arizona. Robin said, "I thought I was still his little cute friend." While she was still in 11th grade, he flew the 16-year-old to Los Angeles to show her his studio and discuss her future. During that trip, in a room with a sliding glass door leading to his pool, Robin alleges that John moved to normalizing abusive behavior and desensitization by touching her inappropriately through her clothes. In the summer of 1997, before her senior year of high school, Chris Falusi flew her to Los Angeles again, where she interned at Spumco. This was the last phase on the list of any groomer, to maintain control and establish power. What's more insane is that Robin wasn't the only underage girl Chris Falusi had successfully groomed around the same time. The second girl in the report was Katie Rice. Katie wanted to be an artist since the 4th grade after she fell in love with the original 3 Nicktoons, Doug, Rugrats, and Ren and Stimpy. At the age of 14, Katie wrote to John and began communicating with him over AOL. He actually introduced Katie and Robin to each other over AOL, so they became internet friends with neither realizing they were both being preyed on. Getting in contact with a powerful figure in animation who was recently nominated for an Emmy Award made Katie and her parents believe she had real potential. They continued chatting online and over the phone into her sophomore year of high school. In an AOL conversation, he told her not to copy and send to her friends. John said, "I want to squeeze you, and I'm crazy about you, Katie. Do I ever make you tingle?" In an email she printed and saved from a few days after she turned 15, the now 41-year-old man wrote, "I'm thinking about you very hard right now, and I have a little tickle in my chest." At the same time, she didn't fully understand the harm. John was known for being an eccentric animator, and to a child, this seemed like a possible twisted joke, but she did have her natural suspicions. "I think this 40-year-old man is hitting on me," Katie wrote in a diary entry from between December 1995 and March of 1996, "but he's never perverted. He's also very nice. He gives me a lot of drawing tips." And it was here that Ren and Stimpy seemed less like a great feat of animation and more like bait that John K. would use to lure in his victims. John and Katie met a few times in Los Angeles and continued communicating after she moved with her family to Lake Tahoe in 1996, as Katie was entering the 10th grade at age 14. They never had any physical contact, but when Katie lived in Nevada, she recalls several late-night phone calls during which Chris Falusi said, "Repeat after me. John's D slides into my P," while he pleasured himself. However, Katie refused. She was still young and was not sure about sex. The conversations left Rice shaken, but she trusted him. Lonely in her new school in Nevada, she viewed him as her only friend. He attended her 15th birthday party, which he later confirmed on a DVD.
I need to just give me like 10 seconds.
DVD extra for the 2003 Ren and Stimpy reboot.
Katie showed me one time, she drew, I was at her 15th birthday party. We'll tell you that backstory a little bit later.
Also, people couldn't help but notice Katie's extremely uncomfortable body language in this clip. She pinches her fingers, scratches her head, face, and arms, and always seems to have this natural reflex to lean away from him whenever he gets louder and more assertive. So by the winter of 1996, John is building 2 relationships with 2 minors while promising that he will give them a career in animation. When Robin was a junior in high school and John K. was in his 40s, they had for the first time. She would then move in with Chris Falusi for the summer and intern at Spumco. After graduating high school, Robin moved in with John K. permanently at just 17 years old.
I thought, I'm getting offered a job, I'm getting offered an internship, there's someone who can take care of me, so I went with it because it's what I had always wanted and what I thought I still wanted.
Well, she was too young, and I freely admit that. It was a bad decision. but she was so convincing.
With the age of consent in California being 18, this was highly illegal. But even if she were 18, all of the behavior leading up to this was insanely disgusting and highly predatory. She said, "I believed as a 16-year-old dating him, oh, the world's against us. It shouldn't be wrong for him to date me. We're cool and rebellious because we're breaking the rules of society." But tragically, all of this wasn't even the most terrifying part of the story. It was that everyone knew, but nobody seemed to care. Although allegations of sexual abuse against John Kay hadn't been previously made public, his relationship with an underage girl was reportedly an open secret within the animation community. Tony Mora, who joined the studio as an intern in 1997 at around 24 years old, recalled being surprised when he first saw Robin there. "I was like, who's that little girl?" In 2000, Robin briefly left Chris Falusi and moved out, though the pair later reunited. During that period, John reached out to Katie at age 18, who had recently been rejected from art school. Chris Falusi offered her work at Spumco and paid for her stay in Los Angeles. Robin and Katie were briefly at the studio at the same time. At this point, Robin was well aware of Chris Falusi's tricks, saying it seemed like John was replacing her with a younger woman. And when Robin left for good in 2002, all of John's attention was directed towards Katie, who seemed like she was just going along with anything, mildly fearful in order to keep her job.
Well, Katie drew a lot of it. What do you think of the hot that Katie draws?
Pretty damn hot.
Oh, thank you.
So what's it like to be a girl and sell out your own kind?
It's fun.
Draw images all over the screen.
I think it's fun.
Yeah?
Yes.
So, hey, the two of you guys together did the shower sequence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell us how that worked?
Okay.
Well, Luke would draw Ren and Stimpy, and I would draw the girls around them. And that's how it worked.
Yep.
Pretty easy.
So how did you do the Shampoo Master sequence?
Well, I took care of the Katie.
And that was all rotoscoped, right?
And the harassment allegedly got worse when she worked from Chris Falusi's home office. Katie said John was doing all sorts of bizarre stuff, waiting naked in his living room for when I let myself into his house to work in the morning, walking around with his hanging out of his pants, telling me that his friend's advice to get me was to just me one day. Katie also acknowledged the backlash she would receive from doubters. "I know what everybody's gonna say. Why didn't you just leave?" Well, because this told me when I was 13 that I was special and I don't have any self-esteem, so I believe it. However, Katie finally decided to leave after she found child on his computer. Katie said she found the images of girls she didn't recognize naked. She also remembered one photo in particular with a naked girl who appeared to be around 10 years old, lying on her back with her legs spread and an expression on her face that Katie described as fearful. Katie said it took her 3 attempts to report the photo she had seen on Chris Falusi's computer. Twice she began filing an online report with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, but panicked before submitting it. On the 3rd attempt, she successfully filed a report with the police at the end of 2017. Through a lawyer, John Chris Falusi officially denied all of the damning allegations against him. However, he would take to social media to write an apology letter that only made him look more guilty. Robin Bird and Katie Rice are 2 women I was very close with at one time, but I stupidly managed to spoil everything. An article recently came out that describes some inappropriate behavior in the late 90s and early 2000s. There is some general truth in it, some things I remember somewhat differently, some not at all. He then addresses Robin directly in the creepiest way ever, reminiscing on their good times when she was a child and he was an adult man. "Your messages reminded me of other nice memories, like how we would watch Yogi Bear cartoons and you would really empathize with Boo Boo, which inspired us to write our own stories and make Boo Boo and the Man together." He even attached a photo of them together, acting like this was a normal consenting adult relationship. "I am still your biggest fan and I am truly sorry I hurt you. It was never my intention." He addressed Katie similarly, sharing memories of their past, writing, "I mistook our bond as something more than friendship, and for that, I am deeply regretful." He then addressed his family and friends, where he wrote, "Eventually, in the late 2000s, in desperation, I went to see a psychiatrist and he diagnosed me with bipolar disorder and ADHD, a combination that makes it almost impossible to control your impulses and obsessions." And of course, he had to pat himself on the back at the end. "Outside of SpongeBob and its talented team, I'm one of the few producers left who's willing to break creative boundaries, try new things, and allow artists to show off their own unique styles and skills. By 2018, Spunko had been closed down for over 12 years, and John was mostly irrelevant outside of small animation circles. In 2019, John K. closed financing for a new short called Cans Without Labels on Kickstarter. He shockingly raised over $130,000 on a project that took a decade to make, but when the video was finally made, the final product was heavily criticized as being either dated, lazy with computer-generated images, or ultimately a scam to make money off the remaining people who had been fooled by his phony intentions. The most frustrating part of this story is that John Kricfalusi was right about a lot of things. He was right that artists deserved more creative freedom, and networks often made safe, boring decisions that hurt great cartoons. And because of that, an entire generation of animators looked up to him, which is why you can see Ren and Stimpy inspiration on many great animations that came after it. Sometimes people are willing to deal with someone like John K., who was extremely difficult to work with, if they think deep down that they are good people with good intentions, which is why when he was exposed for being a predator, there was no reason to stand up for him and his art. And no matter what he has accomplished over his 50-year career in animation, his legacy will be remembered as just another creep at Nickelodeon who used his power to take advantage of children, a story we have seen time and time again. Yet John K.'s story doesn't even hold a candle to Dan Schneider, the most notorious Nickelodeon show producer in history. Check out this video to hear that story.
Yeah, I just have to say, I'm kind of disappointed. Like that's just what I am grasping from all this. And it really proves that you never know artists really in any shape or any form. You never really know what happens behind closed doors. Because this is living proof of, so nobody knew about this. We were just trying to stick to the drawings and all that stuff. Like a lot of this stuff, he should have been capped at around 1993. Yeah, 1993. He should have already been capped, but he went that far and still is going far and not feeling one shred of guilt of what he's doing. Like he knows exactly what he's doing, even though he's bipolar. Even though he's bipolar and has ADHD, he knows exactly what he's doing. It's that, full consciousness that really just kind of leaves you a bit unsettled. Yeah, that was a good video though. I ain't gonna lie. Patrick CC never ceases to bore me. Like he's the goat for real.